welcome. My name is Lucas Lechuga, and I'm your host of MiamiRealEstate.tv. Today I'm here in Midtown Miami, and behind me you see the Standard Residences, which is going to begin closings around Labor Day later this year. And in a bit, I'm going to be meeting up with Carlos Rosso, who's a developer of the Standard. But today I'm here for a different reason. I'm going to be meeting up with Carlos so he can tell us all about Midtown Park, which is a 5-acre site, which will eventually have 4 towers. He's going to be launching sales for the first tower, which is called Midtown Park Residences. So let's head inside and meet up with Carlos so he can tell us all about it. Well, Carlos, thank you for being on the show. It's great to have you here.
Thank you, Lucas. Thank you for coming all the way to Midtown.
Of course, I feel like I'm here all the time because my gym's down the street, so I'm here probably at least 5 to 6 times a week, and kind of feel like Midtown's my second home.
That's great. You're part of our target buyers.
Yes,
Potential
definitely.
buyers.
And I was telling you off camera that I love Midtown, but the one thing that's been missing from Midtown is a luxury component. Mm-hmm. And you're going to tell us all about how that's going to change with this new development that you're going to be launching.
Yeah, thank you very much. Yeah, Midtown is a very exciting neighborhood in Miami. You know, Miami has grown to the point where we are able now to identify this neighborhood. You know, we know that this is Midtown, we know that there's a Wynwood, we know that there's a design district, and that there is an Edgewater. You know, a couple of years ago, these were no man's land. Mm-hmm. You know, we were talking about the history of Midtown. You know, Midtown was acquired originally around 2005, when actually there was nothing around here, by a group from New York. They did the master plan with Bernard Siskovich, you know, which is the plan and is the trace of the streets that we have inherited till today. And they've done it they thought of Midtown in a very similar way to Soho or to New York neighborhoods, you know. They really wanted to focus on activating the ground floors of Midtown. They understand that, you know, and Bernard Siskovich, you know, we've spoken with him several times, you know, he understands the importance of having 24/7 cities activated with ground floor restaurants, with shops, with stores, you know, and with public spaces. So
you were mentioning off camera that there's a requirement that 90% of the usage on the ground floor has to be retail, correct?
Yeah, Midtown is what we call an enclosed neighborhood. It's limited by 29th Street, 36th Street, and North Miami Avenue and the railroads. So there's really, those are what we call the fast streets that are the perimeter of Midtown. Okay. Once you get into Midtown, the streets in Midtown basically don't take you anywhere. You cannot drive through Midtown to go to Edgewater, the same way that you cannot do it east-west to go to Edgewater or to go to North Wynwood. You cannot do that, and you can also not drive through Midtown north to south. You cannot drive through Midtown to go to Wynwood, to the design district. But what you can do is walk. Yep. You know, the streets are designed in such a way that once you enter into Midtown, the cars definitely need to drive at a much slower speed than what they drive on 29th or North Miami or 36. You know, there's double parking on all the streets. And as I was telling you before, you know, there is a component, particularly in Midtown Boulevard, of retail that is by code, by definition. When Siskovich designed Midtown, he said, hey, on Midtown Boulevard, I want to really create a pedestrian, you know, ambience. And on Midtown Boulevard, you cannot have loading areas, you cannot have garage entrances, you cannot have garbage disposals or garbage pickup areas. Okay. You know, so you don't have the problems that other neighborhoods have, you know. It happens in Brickell, it happens in downtown Miami, it happens in Wynwood. You're walking with your wife, your girlfriend, stuff like that, and suddenly you pass through the middle of a dumpster, or you're interrupted because there are cars coming out of a ramp, you know, and that sort of creates an uncomfortable and unsafe situation in the neighborhoods. In the case of Midtown, everything is retail on the ground floor and everything is activated. You know, you don't see people sleeping on the streets, not because they don't want to sleep on the streets, but because everybody's using the streets for tables or for walking around, you know. There's no real office component that goes dark at night. Okay. So that's also something very important. You know, sometimes in downtown areas, you know, you have these office buildings that at night are dead. You know, here it's not the case. This is all residential. Most of the units that are around here are rentals, and there's just a couple of few condo buildings.
Yep.
And I think we did our first project here in Hyde Midtown. This is my second project where we are right now, the Standard, and Midtown Park is going to be my third project in Midtown. And it's a testament of the evolution of the neighborhood. The fact that a developer like David Martin, has come and has brought in John George, a great restaurant, a great project into Midtown is again a seal of approval to the neighborhood.
For sure.
And again, I think that there are very few sites in Miami that are as critical as this site. This was the old Walmart site.
Yep, I remember that.
It's just a site that the whole neighborhood fought against.
Yep.
They didn't want to have a Walmart in their neighborhood. Again, it talks about the spirit of the people that live in Midtown. And they defeated Walmart, and finally were able to redevelop something that's called, what we call a connector site. It's a site that connects 3 different neighborhoods or 4 different neighborhoods. Design District, Wynwood, Edgewater, and Midtown itself.
How large is the site itself?
5 acres.
Okay.
To be able to get something like that in Miami is
It's massive.
it's incredible.
Yeah.
There are very few of those strategic sites left, and this is one of them. And the fact that we've been able to develop something that when we explain to the city and when we explain to the neighbors what we're doing, everybody is really surprised that we have included so much public space. The fact that we are developing a 5-acre site, and we are giving back to the city close to 1.5 acres of public space, with 2 parks, 2 paseos, and a very low commercial building, which basically creates the sensation of a big amphitheater between the buildings that we are developing. It's something really unique.
And it's going to bring 100,000 square feet of retail, correct?
100,000 square feet of ground floor retail, 25,000 square feet gym, fitness center, an 8-court padel club, that's going to be open to the public, but with memberships for the people that live in the buildings, and 950 condos. These are all condos. These are all people that are going to be using the retail, that are going to be using the gym, that are going to be using the paddle, and that's what we want to create. Additionally, we have 2 small boutique office buildings, around 50,000 square feet of office. So we are really not only creating a mixed-use job, but we are doing uses that are mixed together, not only horizontally, but also vertically.
Okay.
So
It's funny because if you were to ask most people, like, what's the most walkable neighborhood in South Florida, a lot of people would say Brickell, but I say Midtown. I mean, Midtown's tremendously walkable because of all this retail that you have around here. And now with the 100,000 square feet of retail being added, it's going to be on another level.
And the densities are different, Midtown is zoned for 150 units an acre. Brickell is zoned for 500 units an acre, so close to 3 times the density.
Wow.
Not only it's zoned for more residential units, but it's also zoned for office. So that's why you have that. All the buildings in Brickell are 40 stories plus. So that creates traffic problems, creates other types of issues. It's a denser part of Miami. But that's a beautiful thing also of Miami. We have all these neighborhoods, and each neighborhood has a different characteristic. Coconut Grove has its own things, Brickell has its own things. Midtown, particularly Midtown, has things that all the other neighborhoods don't have. In my view, in my years at Related, we developed a lot of projects all over the place, and it's very interesting when you come to a neighborhood like Midtown, where the walkways are designed, the landscape is there, the trees are there for the last 20 years, the utilities are all under there, so your building just basically plugs to something that exists. That means you don't have to disrupt the landscape. That means you have big oak trees, you have the shade, you have things that sometimes are not considered important, but you travel and I travel, you go to Paris, you go to London, you go to Buenos Aires, you go to Madrid, and you say, wow, these places have been here forever, and forever in Miami is 20 years.
True.
So it's 20 years. And to get oak trees that are mature, that provide shade, that, sidewalks that are, well lit and that are 50
Wide.
feet wide,
Yeah.
and side cafes, and to provide the connection to go to somewhere. So I don't know if it happens to you on the weekends that sometimes, you're in your condo and you say, okay, so where do I go now? Miami, it's a city where the tradition of walking from the design district to Wynwood is unusual. The characteristics of Midtown are such that it creates a very enjoyable, livable environment. Very walkable, very safe. You see people, mainly young people, a lot of health conscious population, and you have everything around you. You have the design district. You can go to Chanel, Louis Vuitton. You can go and then you can go to Wynwood, a little bit edgier, And then we are going to try to accommodate here tenants that are still not either in the design district or in Wynwood. The Old Saints, the Free People, the Motec, the Mamans, the Pura Vidas, of this world. Those are some of the tenants that we're trying to bring to line the ground floor spaces of Midtown Park.
Yeah, I feel like this neighborhood has transformed itself. It's being known as like a health and wellness neighborhood. Like there's so many yoga places and Pilates and gyms, and now this is going to add to that. And we're talking about the retail component and the types of restaurants. They have to kind of be all a part of that. They need to be similar and be like health conscious and all that, because that's what works here.
Yeah, and we are looking at things that have worked in Midtown. We are looking, the design district, the scale of the pedestrian streets in the design district, the heights in between the buildings. We are replicating that in our two paseos. We are looking at how we integrate the views from the condos into this big open space, and how we identify the different levels with different colors and different flowers of landscaping, different tree species.
The trees are beautiful.
Yeah.
In the renderings that I saw.
So we are putting a lot of detail into that. We are going to announce something very special that we cannot announce now in relationship to the landscape and our a joint venture with a group that is super loved in Miami, that takes care of urban landscaping and parks, which I think is going to add again another dimension to what is traditionally development. When you do development or I do development, normally it's the brand of a car, a sexy couple in a balcony, and a lobby and stuff like that. People here, once our sales teams really do the presentation of the project, are not even focused on the units, because the public areas are so impressive and are so, I think, well thought by Arquitectonica, by Natural Artificial, by Meyer Davis on the interior design side, that people are really impacted. It's like, wow, this is what Miami development should be all about. We should create more public space, more public space where people can meet, not in the sense of meeting, but can see each other, can have a coffee in a sidewalk cafe, can go to a books type of place, So all of that is what we're trying to bring to Midtown. We're trying to bring that positive energy and that great operators that are and exist all over Miami, and that sometimes are one here, another one there, and we're all trying to get them together and create that vibrancy that we think Midtown has.
So before we go into Midtown Park, and that's the condo development that you recently launched sales for. Before we go into that, why don't you discuss a little bit about your history? You started your career with Related Group, correct?
I started my career with Related. I started working with George in 2002.
Okay.
And I finished working with them, I think, in 2020, if I'm not mistaken. And the Related team, Matt Allen, Ben Gerber, Sonia Figueroa, all those guys with whom I spent like 20 years, who are the best in business. Really I learned the trade there, and I think it's very important, for kids and for people to really recognize the value of these great companies that we have in Miami and the great people that know so much about real estate and learn from them. So I worked with George. I started working as an assistant project manager in Tamarack, rental buildings, and went through everything, including 2008, including handing over the keys back of Icon Brickell to HSBC.
I remember that.
And
Bank of America too, right? Bank of America.
Yeah, and then I was a president. Then I became president of Related International. We did things in Mexico.
What year was that you became president?
2010.
Okay. I think that's around the time that I met you. I think I met you maybe around 2011, 2012.
Yeah, 2010. Again, it was a it's a very interesting story and very interesting teaching story of the resilience of Miami. I remember at that time, we were selling units at $350 a square foot. And the whole transformation of Miami, how Miami has improved, how we have attracted, not only the New Yorkers and the international tenants, but also better companies that pay better salaries, and how the whole Miami scene has improved. Obviously, it has become also more expensive, but the reality, those are the growing pains of cities, and I think Miami is in a completely different place than when I first arrived in 2002.
And in which year did you start your own development company?
I started immediately after I left Related.
2020?
2020. We started with this.
And so, for those that don't know, we're here in the sales trailer of the Standard.
Yeah, it's a little sales trailer. The project is nearly sold out. We have only 8 units, so this is really the ground floor of the construction trailer. Yeah,
and they've already topped off. The closings are supposed to begin later this year. You said around Labor Day.
Yeah.
And so that's been a tremendous success for the neighborhood. So, and you mentioned that is going to have a restaurant component as well, correct?
Yeah. This project also has a very strong F&B component. On the ground floor attached to the lobby, we are starting actually right now the build out of Rosetta. Next to that, we have Sushi Garage, again, tenant from Miami, beloved from Miami Beach and Coconut Grove. Yep. And then on the roof, we are doing a restaurant also with Juvia Group with a brand called Solana.
Okay.
Again, this project also reflects the same ideas that we were telling you before of, very active ground floor space, outdoor seating, a lobby that is at grade. One thing also that people don't remember sometimes is Midtown is at plus 14 feet of elevation. Okay. So Midtown never gets flooded.
Interesting, yeah.
You go to Edgewater, you go to Brickell, you go to Only and Dade after a rainy day and you see all the floating cars. There are no floating cars in Midtown. True. Midtown is an amazing place in terms also of elevation, and it allows you to have all the retail uses and the lobbies at grade, at the same level as the sidewalk. Okay. And that's also something that we've incorporated into this project. In Midtown Park, the lobby of Midtown Park is a 7,000 square foot lobby that has 16 feet clear ceilings, and that is all going to be fronting Midtown Boulevard, and that marks the entrance to the park and the entrance to the project of Midtown Park. Okay. That the design of that lobby is thought as an art gallery. If you were like an art gallery in New York, and you pass through the sidewalk and you see this beautiful art and stuff like that, and you say, "Wow, what an amazing place! I wish I could live there." I like to always think that public space in front of private residences creates more value for the residences. If you are able to walk in front of a great public space and look up and say, "Wow, how lucky those guys! They're looking at Central Park, or they're looking at Champs-Élysées, or you walk in front of the boardwalk, even in South Beach, south of Fifth, and you say, "Wow, look at these guys that live in Murano." That creates a sense of aspiring to do that, and
a desire to be there.
The desire to be there, and also creates the public benefit of creating public space in front for people that walk in. So it's a win-win for the unit owner, and it's a win-win for the user that can use now public space.
So the 5-acre site, what's the name of that master plan? Is it called Midtown Park?
It's called Midtown Park.
Okay, so
Yeah.
and so Tower 1 is called Midtown Park Residences.
Tower 1
by
is called
proper.
Midtown Park by proper.
Okay, and why don't you tell us a little bit about Proper? Because I had never heard of it Proper until this development.
Yeah, Proper is a brand created by Brad Corson and Brian DeLoe. They're based out of Santa Monica in California. They have incredibly beautiful hotels and residences. Last year they did their first branded residential project in Austin.
Okay.
It's a beautiful hotel, fantastic residences that in Austin sold more than the Four Seasons, than Rosewood. So they're top of the line in Austin. And they are part of the Californian, what I call the Californian migration to Florida. You know, they're opening a hotel right now in South Beach in another 2 months, in Billionaires Road, which is that section of South Beach between the Raleigh, where Rosewood is going, and the W Hotel. You know, you have the Raleigh, W Hotel, Bulgari, all the top brands, Setai, all the top brands are going to go there. You know, Auberge with, what's the name of the project where Auberge is? I don't know, but one of them. You know, so they're all there. Those are $5,000 square foot units and $1,000 a night hotels. So they're going to be there, and they're going to open a hotel there with a beach club, to which our people here, our buyers, are going to be able to use.
It's truly amazing what's happened with the price per square foot in South Florida.
It's crazy.
What did you guys launch Apogee at? Was that $900 per square foot when it launched? $900 per square foot, and look at what it's trading at now. Is it over $5,000 per square foot?
Yeah, that's what that's what we were just talking about now. Would you rather have, particularly in these days, you know, have your money in the stock market or in real estate? You know, there's no question about it. You know, so the volatility that we are going to have in the stock market, I think it's going to bring back more and more buyers, and the demand, particularly of this type of projects, you know, that are what I call attainable luxury. You know, we are not trying to go for the $5,000 square foot units, but you know, we are giving you a product with fantastic kitchens, you know, incredible bathrooms, all designed by Meyer Davis. And
I love the bathroom renderings.
Yeah,
very beautiful.
All the 3 bedrooms and penthouse units have a wet room. That means double showers and a bathtub, an enclosed sort of wet room. And all the units, all the master bathrooms have double showers. You know?
Okay, nice. That's
things that we learn about, you know, over the years. But again, you know, it's top-notch, fantastic design. Meyer Davis has really connected very well with Proper, and I think it's going to be a fantastic project. So we were going back again to Proper. Proper is also another brand, you know, like the standard in the lifestyle section of the hotel business, but they're much more boutique. You know, they're less known. It's funny that you say that you didn't know them, you know, because I know Brian and I know Brad. I've known them for a long time, and I was telling them, guys, I see more pictures of you and your wife surfing in Costa Rica than of you talking about Proper. You know, we were trying to make the video of Proper, and we couldn't find any sort of interviews or videos of them talking about the brand. And they said, we don't want to do that. You know, it's word of mouth. And they work together with Kelly Wurzler, who's Brad's wife. You know, who's a great designer, amazing designer, one of the best designers in the world. And she has a very specific style, and the hotels are embedded, you know, with that style. And I think it's a testament to the site and to the partnership and to Midtown that they've decided to come and brand the first 288 units with Proper here.
Okay. And so the master plan of the site, it's going to have 5 towers.
We have 4 residential towers and 2 office towers.
And I think you can see the 4 towers in the background
there. 4 towers there. You know, there are 2 parking garages, the north parking garage and the south parking garage. There are 2 paseos and 2 parks with a central building that is a low building. So the reality is that the distance in between all the buildings It's super comfortable. You know, as you can see from the rendering, all the landscape has been thought in different tones so that when you're in your balcony looking down, you're really looking at something that is beautiful. And you have the third floor of all the buildings, which is the paddle courts and the paddle club. So I think it's a very interesting project in the sense that the uses are mixed horizontally and vertically, and that we've created public space. We are going to open a temporary paddle club right now. We're going to start construction. It's supposed to be open for our Basel of this year, you know, and we are going to be doing events there, and people can see and you know have something to come to in Midtown on top of all the restaurants and everything that we have around.
So as a developer, I'm sure before launching a project, you're studying market trends, you're creating projections of population growth and all that. So what do you see? Like, what are those numbers telling you?
I think people are still coming to Miami and still coming to Florida. You know, there's definitely a lifestyle component that is very difficult to find anywhere else in the U.S. I think the low taxes in Florida are still a big attraction. And I think more companies are opening offices and bases here. I think that is, you know, we're not turning around from that. You know, we're not going back to the old days. I live in South Miami, played tennis in South Miami, you know, and what I saw during COVID was amazing. You know, all these New Yorkers that came not only bought all the homes that existed in the neighborhood, they also bought the club. Okay. They loved it so much that they decided to buy it. You know? So all the members were still members. But what I'm saying is that there is a migration of people coming to Florida. They've stayed here during COVID, and they realize that the quality of life that we have is, you know, amazing. It's incredible, and that the city is improving year after year. You know, we see new restaurants, new shops. There's new theaters. You know, Miami, which was a place that, you know, if you came from a big city, I think you come from Chicago.
Yes,
you know?
correct.
So you know, to come from places like that where it was more of a tradition to go to the theater or to go to the movies and stuff like that. At the beginning, when we came to Miami, it was like, oh, you know, where are we? You know, there's nothing.
Let's go to the beach.
Let's go to the beach.
That's it.
But the reality is that it has improved tremendously, and I see it with my kids. You know, they didn't want to leave Miami. You know, they had gotten into universities in Chicago, in Boston, and stuff like that. They decided to stay in Miami, and they want to work in Miami, and they want to stay here. They have a quality of life that they don't have. That, you know, they talk to their friends in Boston, and they're all freezing, and they all want to come back. And anytime that they find an occasion to fly back to Miami, they come to Miami. So I am seeing that, you know, as a trend that is not going to stop. You know, we continue growing and continue improving. And of course, there are things that we can do better, but you know, the reality is that at the same time, the city is getting completed. And sites like this, you know, that are strategic, that really, once you develop a site like this, you're connecting the neighborhoods. Because when you have this big open 5 acres in the middle of nowhere, people stop, they don't walk. They don't continue walking to Wynwood, or they don't continue and walk to the design district. You need to have activation, you have to have ground floor for people to feel secure to continue walking.
So back to Midtown Park Residences, how many total units?
288 units.
Okay.
You know, we have some very special units on the top of the building. I don't know if you've seen the renderings. Top of the building has some double height penthouse units.
Those are 3 stories, correct? It's
two stories, and the last one is a 3-story penthouse.
And those are on the east side. There's 2
on the east side, yes. Then on the last floor we have another 5 penthouse units that have pool decks on the roof, private pool decks on the roof, and sunset and some areas, you know, on the roof of the building. And then we have bigger units than usual, you know, than what we had as standard. You know, we have 2 bedrooms, 3 bedrooms, and 1 bedroom units. And
so 1 to 3 bedrooms at the Midtown Park Residences. Okay.
Fantastic amenity level on the 7th floor with 2 pools, an adult pool and a general pool for everybody. You know, pickleball court for the owners of that tower, and summer kitchen, so that, you know, connected to the gym and connected to the spa.
Okay.
So steam, his and her steam rooms. So all the all the amenities that you want, plus a hotel in South Beach.
Okay.
And a beach club in South Beach.
Oh, nice. Where's that going to be?
Shelbourne.
Okay, nice.
Yeah.
And back to Meyer Davis. So, for the audience at home who aren't familiar with them, like they did Park Grove,
They
correct?
did Park Grove, they did Auberge with me when we were at Related.
Okay.
You know, they are doing the Well right now in Coconut
Okay.
Grove.
Mm-hmm.
So they are known for super high-end projects, you know, and they really are also big followers of Kelly Wersler, you know, who's one of the partners and creators of the Proper brand.
Okay.
And they were really super excited when we called them and told them, hey, let's do this project together. You know?
Nice.
And they're also good friends. You know, they become good friends over all these years. You know,
Mm-hmm.
in the development side, whether it's a broker, a cameraman, or an interior designer, we all know each other.
Uh-huh.
And I think that is very important also to be able to speak the same language. You know, and they totally get it.
So you recently launched sales. You launched sales last Tuesday, actually,
Yeah.
last Tuesday. And you already have 15 reservations.
Yeah, 15 and more coming. You know, we are announcing right now. We're going to announce that we're going to start construction on the padel club. We've received a lot of interest from Austin and from Santa Monica. We're going to go and do an event in Austin because the buyers of those units want to know more about the project, and they have asked us, hey, can you send someone? Can we send the sales team down there to take a look and go and do a presentation for everyone? And that's what we're doing. So
you're talking about the Austin project by Proper?
Yeah, the Austin project by Proper.
Got it.
So we're going there. We're going to Latin America tomorrow. I'm going to Buenos Aires. You know, doing press in Buenos Aires. So I think the response has been super positive. And we're super excited. You know, I think a year from now we're going to start building this building, and hopefully, you know, during this year we're going to start announcing tenants for the F&B on the ground floor of all the retail.
Okay. And for the padel club, that's going to be there temporarily. So that's going to be there. I think you mentioned earlier, like 3 years.
It's going to be there 3 years, and the idea is that while we are selling Phase 2, the padel club still is in operation.
Got it. And how many courts is that going to have? 12. Nice.
12 courts, clubhouse, an F&B component that we cannot talk too much about, but I think it's going to be super cool. Because what we really wanted to create is a public club for the people that live in Midtown.
Okay.
You know? Yes, we want to use it to sell condos and stuff like that, but the reality is that we think that there's also a demand for people that are here that want to play padel, and that they have this site that has been empty for a long time. We want to use it.
How big are the residences at Midtown Park?
3 bedrooms, 1,800 square feet, 2 bedrooms, 1,400 square feet, 1 bedrooms around 1,000 square feet, more or less.
So good size.
Yeah, good size.
And,
Nice.
and what's your average price per square foot?
Average price per square foot, we launch at around $1,200 a foot.
Okay. And you mentioned that, so you're currently in reservations. You expect to start construction when?
We start construction when we are 70% sold. We think in a year from now we are going to get there, and hopefully, you know, the economy is going to be on our side, and we're going to be able to start.
Okay. And
Similar to what happened here, you know, in the Standard. You know, the building is now finished. We are in the month of April. We started in January of last year. Okay. So the building is done.
Yeah. Wow. You guys move fast. And so, what are the price ranges for the residences there?
I think we have one line of studios starting below 700,000.
Okay.
Then the one bedrooms are around 900,000.
So you have studios as well.
Yeah, we have one small line of studios. You know, 700,000, 900,000, $1.4 million, $1.3 million for the 2 bedrooms, and probably $1.8 million starting in the 3 bedrooms.
And how about the architect of the building?
The architect is Arquitectonica, you know. So again, we are designing to the standards of Midtown and to the code of Midtown. You will see when you look at the renderings that there is like a basement of the tower and the retail area, which is basically the 60-foot maximum height that you can do at 10-foot setback, and then the buildings have to set back further in.
Okay.
And that's something that is all around Midtown, and that sets like a governing, landscape for the ground floor of all these buildings.
Okay. And one question that I've had, and I'm sure a lot of people that live or visit Midtown have, is what's going to happen with the lot directly to the north of us?
The lot directly to the north of us.
A lot of people walk their dogs there.
Yeah, they want.
It's a huge lot.
They want their dogs there. It's going to be developed at some point, but there's going to be a big component of open space.
Okay. And so that's owned by a developer that's just been sitting on it?
It's owned by the same owner of everything in Midtown.
Got it. Okay. Okay. Is there anything else that you want to share about Midtown?
No, I think again, it's very important, that people understand, even looking at Google Earth, how the streets work in Midtown and how the sidewalks work in Midtown, and that they come and they walk in Midtown, because it's very interesting to see. We've been here for this, as I said before, this is my third project in Midtown, and it's very interesting to see, single women feeling very safe, men feeling very safe, families. Midtown is one of the few neighborhoods that has a kids park here in the back.
Oh, yeah.
You go there in the afternoon and you see all the strollers, and that's a great place for families to live, At least, they get here when they're single, they date, they get married, they have kids.
And they stay here.
You can start in a studio and you can finish in a 3-bedroom.
That's funny, that's true.
But no, we are super happy with the results of the launch. And I think there are going to be more super exciting news coming. I cannot tell you everything right now, but as soon as we start signing all these tenants, you're going to start seeing that that all these brands are going to bring to life the vision that we just outlined.
Great.
And again, the most important thing is that we are creating public space. Public space that sometimes is so overlooked in developments, and that I think are going to make the difference of this project with any other standalone project.
Great. Well, I'm very excited about this project, and thank you again for being on the show, and thank you for sharing with the audience everything that about this exciting project, and it's great to have you.
Thank you, Lucas.
Thank you. Take care. So we just finished speaking with Carlos, and now we're going to go for a walk so he can show us firsthand the walkability that this neighborhood offers.
This is really what Midtown is all about. It's not a complicated place.
Sugarcane has been here since the beginning, I think. Yeah, it's funny because I got my real estate license in 2005. That's when this whole development, this master plan launched in 2005. And I was telling you earlier, I remember going to the sales gallery over there, and they had a big scale model of, I think it was either 5 or 6 different towers that they were planning to build here, and then only 2 of them came to fruition.
This is an amazing restaurant. Have you been to Mati's?
No.
You like food,
no,
man.
Yes.
Is that go there? And
is that Peruvian?
Peruvian.
Okay, I've heard of it.
And that where the curtains are is an omakase. The same guys that did Itamai.
Okay. Yep. I love Itamai.
Those are those.
Somebody mentioned that, and I'm like, I don't know where it's located. I didn't know it's behind there. Okay. When did that open?
No, this has been open for the last 2 years now. When Michelin started.
Oh wow! I didn't know that.
Yeah, and then you have, like this passage through.
Okay.
We can go to that park. There's like a park there with.
Sure. Yeah, let's do that. So right now, the buyers that you have for like the 15 reservations, mainly South Americans.
Yeah, and it's also, there are 2 of them from Austin.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. So again, I think they have a lot of traction.
So was that Proper's first development in the U.S.? Austin?
No, Santa Monica, I think.
Santa Monica. Okay.
Yeah. Look at their website.
I did. I took. Yeah, it looks very nice. Before I came here, I took a look at their website.
Yeah.
Yeah, there's so many restaurants here. It's amazing.
Yeah. So our idea of that like little plaza came from here.
Okay.
That's the driveway that you get, and then you have a tower there, a tower on the other side, and the other towers on the other side.
Okay.
So that's like a little bit, but there's not a lot of neighborhoods when you come and you can see all these canopies. of trees.
True. Provide shade.
Yeah. And the fact, that David is launching and has launched very successful there in Tropic, it's great for us also.
Definitely. How have they been doing with sales?
They're doing okay.
Doing well?
Yeah, they're doing okay. Again, you come here at 4 o'clock, 6 o'clock in the afternoon, it's packed with kids.
Yeah, true.
Packed with kids.
Amazing.
And we've done yoga events here, Pilates. Great.
What are the price ranges of the penthouses? Those are, what, roughly like 2,600 square feet? I think I saw.
Like 3 million.
Okay.
Around.
Yeah, I saw the 3-story penthouses have a rooftop pool and summer kitchen, right?
That's the standard, and there you see the
yellow.
Okay, yep. We haven't finished painting, but all that yellow is Juvia, and that's the existing parking garage. But it's empty.
Oh, it is?
Yeah, it's like there's no one really parking.
Okay.
This was planned originally for a Macy's. It was a Macy's before Walmart. There was huge Macy's.
Oh, I didn't know that.
Yes.
Interesting.
So they got the city to finance the parking garage. We can go up and look into the site.
Okay. Sure, let's do that. So where are you headed tonight?
Buenos Aires.
Okay. For sales?
I have my parents' birthday. 185 years old. 90 and 95.
Wow.
So
that's great.
Going there and then doing a little bit of press. Taking advantage of So this is the parking garage. This one, that's the door to the standard.
Oh, okay.
So that's a fob door. When we sold the units at standard, we didn't have to build parking. The parking is already here.
Interesting, nice. So that opens up to the back of the lobby?
Yeah.
So this is going to serve as parking for the standard?
This is going to serve as parking for the standard. Whoever wants a parking space can come and rent it here.
Okay. Wow.
That's the site, and when you see that street that's there, if you imagine a straight line from that building all the way across, that's going to be a temporary padel club.
Okay.
So
you're saying the southern end?
The southern end.
Okay.
Where the second parking garage is. So there's a parking garage against that existing building. There are 2 office buildings, one in that corner and the other one in that corner.
Okay.
That are 6 stories high, And then there is a big park here in the middle, a big park on the other side connecting to that other street.
Okay.
And 2 walkways that cross from one side to another. One parking garage here, another parking garage on the other side.
So the 4 residential towers that are going to be on that site, are they all going to be condos or is it going to be also apartments? All condos.
Being all condos. One here parallel to this street.
Okay.
2 there parallel to that street.
North Miami.
Yeah, and 1 in the last one parallel to 29th Street.
Okay.
28 stories, so more or less the height of this building.
Okay.
This 228 and those 18.
Nice.
But the important thing is the space in between the buildings and the public space that is in between the.
How many residential units total in?
934.
934. Okay. That's a great site.
Good site.
Yeah. Thank God people fought the Walmart.
Yeah.
That would have created so much more traffic with the vehicles.
Yeah. But that's what's happening right now in all the cities and with the redevelopment of retail. If you create enough density that can support pedestrian retail, you lower immediately the amount of traffic.
Okay.
South Miami, just to give you an example, South Miami Mall, has 5,000 parking spaces. If you build only 1,000 or 1,500 units, the traffic goes down tremendously.
Okay.
Those 5,000 parking spaces in any mall of that size, get filled 3 or 4 times a day.
True.
So people come and go, come and go, come and go. That creates traffic.
Yeah.
That creates traffic on US 1. So what you want is for people to live local in the sense that they are staying in neighborhoods where they have everything around. And that is difficult to find, Because we are all the time, upselling real estate, But you need to go to a Whole Foods, you need to go to a Target, you need to go, those are the normal places. And here you have them all within walking distance.
Yep. Yeah, it's funny because I moved here in 2004, and when I moved here, I came from Chicago, like we said earlier, and I didn't have a car in Chicago because, when I did have a car in Chicago, I would just sit on the street because I would never wanted to move it. So when I relocated to Miami, I'm like, oh, it's a major city. I don't need a car. That lasted like 2 weeks. Exactly. After 2 weeks, I'm like, I need a car. So I ended up getting a car. But now you can actually get by without a car. I know several people that they live in Midtown, like I was mentioning earlier. Like last week, I showed a couple that relocated from Los Angeles to Midtown. They don't have a car. They just stay here. Everything's here.
And the restaurants are opening all the time. This is La Cabrera from Argentina. They're opening now. Their vacancy in Midtown is 0.
Really?
Yeah.
And that says something because I feel like retail has been dying lately. I've been hearing about, I think there's 2 major restaurants that closed down at Bell Harbor. The Bell Harbor shops, Abba closed down, and I heard Lazoo's closed down.
Yes.
So I don't know what's going on with, and I'm hearing from people that work retail that they're like, it's slow. It's just, but I think that has to do with the economy too. So what's your take on the economy? Do you think all these changes that Trump's implementing, and do you think it's going to benefit us in the long run?
I think that, we have an incredible brand in the U.S. being super welcoming, and attracting people and growing based on the growth of the population. I think that unfortunately the discourse, for whatever reason, has turned a little bit negative, and tried to push not the best part of people, but the worst part of people, And I hope that, politicians in general, on both sides, can get together and not ruin what we had, which is what attracted so many buyers from all over the world to come here, particularly in a place like Miami.
Yeah, that's true.
Did I answer like a politician?
You did. It's very, very middle ground.
But we have to go to the center. There are things that on both sides are a little bit too extreme that I am not happy about.
True. Okay. Well, thanks again. Appreciate
Thank
it.
you, man.
Okay, take care.
Thank you, Lucas.
Well, that's all for today. If you're interested in learning more, or if you have any questions about Midtown Park Residences or want to reserve a unit, contact me, Lucas Lechuga, at lucas@miamicondoinvestments.com. And before you go, be sure to like, comment, and subscribe down below.